We are only 4 days into this, and the results have been incredible. Historic, really. Only the United States of America could lead this, only us. But when you add the Israeli Defense Forces, a devastatingly capable force, the combination is sheer destruction for our radical Islamist Iranian adversaries. They are toast, and they know it.
Princeton grad, combat veteran, Fox News host, and now he's the Secretary of Defense for the United States of America. Pete Hegseth built his entire brand on being the real deal, and he wants you to believe he is tough, patriotic, and God-fearing. He presents himself as a warrior who cuts through the nonsense, while everyone else is too soft to say what needs saying. But the closer you look at this man, the messier the story gets. So the question I want to ask today is simple. Is Pete Hegseth the alpha warrior scholar he's been selling you for years? Or is he just the ultimate grifter in a helmet? Let's get into it. The making of a poster boy. So let's start at the beginning, because this is where it gets interesting. Pete Hegseth grew up in Forest Lake, Minnesota, which is just a small town where his father ran a business. His mother was a conservative activist who homeschooled him and shaped his worldview from a very young age. So the ideology was not something he picked up later in life. It was baked in early, right from the jump. And then, and I absolutely love this part, he goes to Princeton. Princeton is one of the most elite universities on the planet, so it's not exactly the man of the people origin story he likes to push, is it? But here's the thing, he doesn't lead with Princeton because it doesn't fit the brand he's building. The brand is all about working class grit and military toughness, not Ivy League dining halls and debate clubs. Now, to be fair, and I will be fair when it's deserved, he did join Army ROTC at Princeton. And after he graduated, he actually deployed to Guantanamo Bay, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And these were real deployments where he earned 2 combat infantryman badges. And that is genuinely dangerous work that I'm not going to take away from the man. But this is where I start raising an eyebrow. He left the army as a captain, which is just a mid-level officer rank. There's nothing wrong with that on its own, but when you're branding yourself as this supreme warrior figure who is going to out-soldier the whole establishment, being a captain feels like a bit of a gap between the myth and the reality. Anyway, so moving on, the military career ends and he pivots hard. He goes straight into conservative media and politics, and then he runs for Senate in Minnesota in 2012. He gets cooked in that race, and it's not particularly close, which would make most people take a step back and rethink the entire plan, but not Pete. Because what that loss actually does is push him towards something more powerful than a Senate seat. It pushes him toward a camera, and that right there is the moment this story really starts. Because here's the thing about Pete Hegseth that I think people miss. The military service was real, and the faith is probably real. But the persona is a fully constructed, CrossFit-doing, tattoo-wearing, alpha male warrior patriot package that gets built later. He didn't walk out of Afghanistan as a brand, but instead he built the brand afterward in a TV studio with a teleprompter and a booking agent. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Anyway, he finds his camera, and everything changes. The Fox News machine. So Pete Hegseth joins Fox News in 2014, and almost immediately, the man just fits. It was like the entire channel had been built with a Pete Hegseth-shaped hole in it, just waiting for him to show up and fill the space. He starts out as a contributor before grabbing a weekend slot on Fox and Friends, and then boom, he's one of the main hosts because the guy is undeniably good on camera. I'll give him that much. He's comfortable, he's confident, and he's got that square-jawed military energy that plays incredibly well with an audience looking for a hero to tell them what to think. Fox News knows exactly what they've got their hands on here. Pete isn't just some pundit, he's a product and the living embodiment of the channel's favourite fantasy. You've got a Princeton-educated veteran who talks like a regular bloke and absolutely loathes the same things the viewers hate, like the media, the elites, and the woke left. Never mind the fact that he graduated from one of the most elite universities on the planet, because that little detail gets filed away where nobody else has to look at it. So what does this Fox version of Pete Hegseth actually look like? He rails against political correctness and defends military culture with real aggression while pushing back on anything that smells like a liberal consensus. And he does it all with this unshakable confidence, carrying this kind of, hey, I've been to war and seen things that you haven't, so sit down kind of energy that is genuinely effective for television. When he writes books like In the Arena or American Crusade, the titles alone tell you everything you need to know about the brand he's pushing. He isn't just a commentator anymore. He's positioning himself as a movement leader and a standard bearer, and the audience eats it up because they're starving for that kind of figure. Now, I want to pause and be straight with you for just a second. Some of what he says about military culture and veteran issues is actually legitimate, and he does genuinely advocate for people who served. He co-founded Concerned Veterans for America, and there are real people out there who say he helped them. So I'm not going to pretend that that didn't happen just because the overall package feels off to me. But, and it's a massive but, the problem with Pete Hegseth has never been about whether he cares for veterans or not. The real issue is how he uses that credibility as a shield to stop anyone from criticizing him. Every time he talks about the military, he's basically saying, I've served and I was there, so who are you to talk? That's a grifter move, plain and simple. During this period, the alpha posturing just starts ramping up. I mean, the tattoos multiply and the CrossFit content start appearing everywhere. There's a very deliberate physical transformation happening alongside his media rise. And let's be honest, it isn't subtle at all. He's constructing a very specific, very calculated image of what a real man is supposed to look like. And it maps perfectly onto what his audience wants to see. He's basically telling a whole generation of conservative men how they should look, how they should talk, and exactly who the enemy is. The thing that makes it work so well is that he genuinely seems to believe most of it, or at least he performs that belief so convincingly that it feels real. That's the most dangerous kind of media figure you can find, though. It's not the cynical liar you've got to watch out for. It's the true believer who also happens to be brilliant at self-promotion. By the time Donald Trump starts paying serious attention to him, the brand is fully formed as the warrior, the scholar, the patriot, and the alpha. Now look, Trump knows a good performer when he sees one, and he saw exactly what Pete had built. This brings us to the moment where everything either comes together or starts to fall apart, depending on how you want to look at it, of course. Power, chaos, and the reality check. So Trump nominates Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense in November 2024, and the reaction is exactly what you'd expect. It's split right down the middle. His supporters are losing their minds in the best way possible because they think they finally got a real one and some kind of warrior instead of some Pentagon bureaucrat who's never held a rifle. Pete's guys are absolutely buzzing because this is the moment the brand finally pays off, and it feels like the whole journey was leading right here. And then the Senate confirmation hearings happen. Suddenly, the curtain starts pulling back just a little bit. And here's the thing about that alpha poster boy persona. It works brilliantly on a television set where you control the narrative and in a book where you write every single word. It works in a Fox studio where the questions are friendly and the crowd is warm, but it works a lot less cleanly when you're sitting in front of the Senate Armed Services Committee. It also works a lot less when people start asking you hard questions under oath. And that polished image starts to crack. The hearings are rough, and multiple allegations surface, including a 2017 incident involving alcohol at a conference and accusations from a woman who filed a formal complaint. He denies it, and his team denies it, but the story just sits there and doesn't go away because these things just never do. There are also serious questions about his qualifications because running the Department of Defense is not the same thing as being a Fox News host who just loved the military. Managing hundreds of thousands of personnel and trillion-dollar budgets is one of the most complex jobs in the world, and Pete Hegseth had never run anything close to that scale. His supporters argue, well, that's the whole point, to clean house and bring in someone the Pentagon machine hasn't swallowed yet. And that's a fair enough argument. But there's a massive difference between an outsider shaking things up and an outsider who genuinely doesn't know what he doesn't know. In my opinion, Pete Hegseth sits much closer to that second category. He gets confirmed, but only barely, with a vote of 51 to 49 after Vice President J.D. Vance has to cast the deciding vote. That isn't a mandate. It's a squeaker. For a man who built his whole identity around being undeniably impressive and the toughest alpha in the room, a one-vote margin to get your job is a bit of a come down, isn't it? Now look, he's in the seat and he's the Secretary of Defense, so in one sense, the brand actually worked. The strategy paid off, and a kid from Forest Lake, Minnesota, ended up running the American military, which is an extraordinary outcome by any measure. But here's what I keep coming back to, the gap. I'm talking about the gap between who Pete Hegseth actually is and the version of himself he's been selling you this whole time. You've got a Princeton grad who hides his elite education, a mid-level officer who brands himself as the ultimate warrior, and a TV host who packages himself as a movement leader. He's a man with serious personal conduct allegations who presents himself as the last bastion of real male virtue. And that gap is the real story here. It's not about the resume. It's about the distance between the performance and the truth. Anyone can build a brand, and plenty of people do it every day. But when that brand is specifically built on being the real one, while everyone else is fake, then that gap isn't just hypocrisy, it's the whole con. So, is he the ultimate alpha poster boy, or is he the ultimate proof that the alpha poster boy was always just a poster? I'll let you decide. So that's what this whole mess comes down to. Pete Hegseth is exactly what you get when the massive media machine meets a man who actually believes his own hype. Whether that myth survives the pressure of a real job with real consequences is a story that's still being written and is still literally in motion and action as we speak. So if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, drop your thoughts in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one.